So, according to Attorney General William Barr, the Mueller report concludes that there is not sufficient evidence to prove the president colluded with Russia during the 2016 election, but he did have Russia's help. Special counsel Mueller indicted 34 people during his 2-year-long investigation into the president.
On February of last year, 12 Russians and 3 Russian entities were charged with conspiring to defraud the U.S., including a Russian troll farm called the Internet Research Agency. That agency has been accused of impersonating U.S. citizens to spread misinformation on social media in support of President Trump's campaign. Joining us now to talk about this and whether or not the U.S. is still at risk of being hacked is CNET senior producer Dan Patterson. Good to see you.
You too.
So we keep throwing around the word hacked, but it's really not hacked, right?
Well, there was hacking, and there was this use of social media. The hacking was of John Podesta's email using phishing, but also several dozen of the Clinton campaign using phishing tactics.
But when it comes to social media, we're talking about using it as it was, in a way, almost meant to be used.
Yeah, that's right. The viral mechanics, meaning the way that these sites are designed, are built on speed, not necessarily safety. I don't know that we can blame them for that because we get a lot of benefit from this. But look, the key takeaway, as soon as we had noticed that the Mueller report was coming, I reached out to a number of people in cybersecurity. And even at short notice over the weekend, I heard from over a dozen people, and they all said, look, in order to understand the future, we have to take a look at the past, no matter what side of the partisan equation you fall on. And I heard from Democrats and Republicans, they all said that, look, these wouldn't be multi-billion-dollar companies if the viral mechanics, meaning, again, the way information spreads on these networks, wasn't effective. And what the IRA, as well as other Russian entities, are accused of doing are setting up fake pages, fake profiles, seeding influential people, or seeding the content with content that was designed to sway influential people and voices, and then spreading out from there. And according to Facebook, who we've spoken to repeatedly over the last year, they have said, hey, look, we see influence campaign content happening here because it's effective. Now, we also tamped down on this, and according to the Facebook Newsroom blog, they've taken active steps to prevent this from happening in the future. But we need to, in order to better understand 2020, we need to look at the way Facebook, Twitter, and other social networks were used for political purposes.
Yeah.
So as Washington, the media, however you want to define it, argues about releasing the full report, not releasing the full report. Is the president fully exonerated? Is he not fully exonerated? What's being done to protect the election integrity of this country for 2020?
Vlad, that is the question that all of us should pay attention to. Those other questions are incredibly important for us to know the idea of justice, or at least help us understand that justice has been served. But in order to protect democratic institutions, we need to do a few things. Yes, us as individuals can try to watch for phishing attacks and that kind of things. But really, what we need to do is make sure that there are good data protection policies, at least according to the sources I spoke with. Make sure that there is policies in place that your information is not exploited in ways that we saw in the past with organizations like Cambridge Analytica and others, in order to target millions of Americans with what is effectively propaganda.
So, you know, sometimes when the administration is pressed upon whether or not they believe that Russia interfered with the 2016 election, they will often say, yes, Russia and others interfered. Are there others?
Recently.
Yes. In fact, the most important takeaway from what we have learned about what Russia did is that it is low-tech and affordable, which means it's scalable. So the United States has engaged in influence campaign activities, as has China and other entities. So when we look at Sri Lanka, when we look at Vietnam, when we look at places like, or groups like the Rohingya, they've all been targeted with influence campaign content designed to marginalize groups that are a political or cultural threat to hegemonic powers.
So when we put pressure on Facebook, it's really not just about our election. I mean, that's the most important thing here, but this is happening all across the globe.
Right. When I speak to cybersecurity experts, their biggest concern is not necessarily one particular software vulnerability or flaw, but it is the vulnerability of institutions here, democratic institutions here in the United States and with our allies.
All right, Dan Patterson, important information for our viewers and certainly for our lawmakers to understand. Thank you for stopping by.